Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy. He's letting us know I am in with one of my favorite weekly segments. I'm with my main man, Jacob Padilla. I'm old DB. What's up, JP?
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you,
Are you just saying that, or are you really good?
No, I'm in a pretty good mood.
It has been pretty busy.
Yeah, that is for sure.
How are you keeping up with things? Everything's good?
Yeah, got more volleyball tonight, and then got some high school football Friday, and be able to get out to a game. So that's a nice thing about the Wednesday Saturday splits. Don't have to worry about Friday nights, but it's another week.
I am now all of a sudden available for a Friday night. Now that Westside will receive a forfeit from Omaha Bryan, as Omaha Bryan and Benson will sit the week out.
Yeah,
with forfeitures after their little co-curriculars last week. So
yeah,
I don't know who I'm gonna go see now.
That's
maybe
a tough deal.
do I just sit at home and be quiet, or do I try to get out?
That's a decision you have to make.
I know. I was waiting for a little nudge, nudge, wink, wink, like try to get on out. There aren't a ton of great games,
especially in the Metro.
There are a couple
that could be interesting.
WS has got to go to Columbus.
Yeah.
Which should be interesting.
I'm looking at North Platte at Millard West just because I haven't seen North Platte as a possibility for me. But, there aren't any games that jump off the schedule like, oh, you have to go to this one. Sure. Could have used last Friday off.
Yeah, right? There was plenty going on, a couple of statements, and we maybe should start with the news of the day if you're a Metro or State of the Nebraska football fan, with Nebraska flipping. This started to leak like the last day and a half. I think people were waiting for confirmation. I can't imagine it went over well in Manhattan with that coaching staff, but Nebraska flips Gage Stenger from K-State to Nebraska. That's a good in-state get for them.
Yeah, and it looks like they're kind of viewing him as that JoJo Doman nickel type of linebacker that's kind of between a safety and between a linebacker. So that's probably where he fits best, just based on his size and kind of the way he plays. It'll be interesting to see kind of how he does at the next level, and they've obviously got Isaac Gifford at that spot. They've got Javen Wright there, so he'll kind of fit in with those guys and battle for playing time there. But with Nebraska's class as small as it is, and them kind of struggling to fill it out, even why not take a chance on an in-state guy that can play football really well and see how he does for you? Yeah,
I've seen a lot of comps. I'm not sure I agree with any of them so far. Yeah. I've heard the JoJo Doman. I don't like that one. I've heard Luke Reimers. I certainly don't like that one. Do you kind of have a comp maybe for what you think he is? And he's a good athlete, obviously. Yeah. If he's played wide receiver, he's played quarterback. He's going to go from safety to linebacker probably at the next level if he can grow into that size. Do you not like those comps? Are you with me in that?
Yeah, I don't know that he's quite as explosive as those guys, or even Isaac Gifford, who's off the charts athletically, testing-wise. So I don't know that he's the same exact type of guy as them, just in terms of how he's going to test out. But I think that's where
K-State did have him at a 4.6. We'll see on short area burst and kind of his vertical, which is where the Giffords, the Domans, and certainly Luke Reimer excel. Very sudden with their change of direction.
And so he's not the same type of player as them, but he can do, I think, he can play that role and give them some different things in that spot, just with his versatility and his instincts and all that kind of stuff.
Coming off, we'll see how serious the injury is. They will be Millard South will be without Stenger's services, at least in the short term. Yeah. I put him in the category of about 3 guys, maybe 4, that you can ill afford to lose that mean the most to their team. He is in the same, for as good as Millard South's skill is, with Taylor and the Gasaways and everybody else, Nash. He's the guy that makes those guys go.
Exactly. All those guys kind of fit around and are when Gage is out there just playing his game, they're allowed to do what they do really well. You don't have to kind of over rely on any one of those guys to kind of carry the load. And Christian Nash had a good game against Fremont, kind of picked up the load when Stenger went down. So 13 carries, 169 yards, couple of scores. So that's the kind of performance they're going to need from him moving forward. They're going to have to rely on that halfback run game a little bit more, as opposed to just kind of spreading you out and letting Stenger kind of pick you apart and get it to all the different weapons, depending on the look on that down. But they've got plenty of talent here. They'll be able to finish the regular season strong here, I would imagine. Kozil's got a few snaps here and there because of the situations they've been in. The question is, how long-term is it?
Yeah, I would put him in the discussion of indispensable. He belongs in the Dom Rizak, the Vince Genatone, kind of the one guy that offense needs for kind of everybody else to do what they do. Again, and they probably have more athleticism than the two aforementioned teams.
Yeah.
Although Westside is close in terms of their matchups. But I still would give the nod to Millard South just because they're older.
I was going to say, yeah, the experience edge there kind of pushes them over.
But that's a big one. It changes the dynamics, in my opinion. I would think if he doesn't play, and let's just say it's the next couple of weeks, that's okay. But if it leaks into the playoffs, I don't think you can make them the favorite.
No, I don't think so either. And especially maybe they can get through a round, maybe two, but once you get there to the semis, you get there to when you're playing the other elite teams.
I mean,
Gage was
for as good as the skill guy was, he was the difference versus Bellevue West.
He was the best player
on the field.
He was the best player on the field against Bellevue West. He was the best player on the field against Elkhorn South. He was the difference in those games, and without him, those games probably go a little bit differently.
Yeah, so the Elkhorn Souths, the Preps, the Bellevue Wests, the West Sides, everybody kind of perks up a little bit, and it's like, that's the great equalizer, which is good and bad. It lets you know that he's definitely the engine, but you never want to see great players like that sidelined for any length of time. So hopefully he comes back. Well, because you want to be able to win and compete against the best when they're at their best.
Yeah.
And I know it's sports and guys get hurt and there are injuries, but I mean, if you want to call yourself the best, you'd like to beat the best when they're at their best.
Yeah, and that's really kind of looking at it. There have been some injuries for teams, but that's really the only one right now that you look at kind of the contenders, the ones that really have a shot at winning a state title that has a key player on the shelf right now. So hopefully they'll be able to get back here once they get to the postseason.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're Millard South, right, you are going to rely on your depth because you do have some other options. If you're Bellevue West, you're thinking, okay, he single-handedly did kill us. We have made some adjustments defensively since then, but I'm watching that Bellevue West Millard West game. Boy, I don't know. Defensively, Bellevue West has some concerns that they've really got to shore up.
Yeah, it was a 55-31 win for Bellevue West. So, yeah, offense just fine. O.J. Richardson did what he did, 223 and 3 scores. Luke Johansson played really well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of not surprised there. Millard West kind of struggles a little bit in the back end after watching them against Lincoln East. But he 15 for 19 for 296 and 3 scores. He ran it in for another touchdown. He had 100 yards plus for both tight ends, Helms and Mike Riley Ducker. Helms had 183 yards receiving. So the offense is clicking just fine. Like you said, though, the question is, can they prevent other teams from scoring? And 31 points is probably more than I'm sure Michael Hoffman was happy to give up.
Tell you what, you bring up Coach Huffman and defense. It's strange to hear those two things come in the same sentence, but without it, he really can't be who he'd like to be as the head coach of that team. He's gonna need them to get a few stops. And I know North Platte did it, and we'll get to them. They out Lincoln East
game of the week in Class A.
Which was crazy, but you can't give up 41 points to North Platte, in my opinion. So this one is really all about matchups, right? There are some explosive offenses if you get the wrong matchup, right? Maybe not super high-end teams, but teams that can deal you fits if you're not on your A game defensively. A Papillion, a Lincoln East, teams that can cause you some fits scheme-wise if you're not sound on defense, regardless of who you are.
Yeah, and we're hitting the stretch run now where at this point teams are pretty close to what they're going to be, barring any serious injuries late, as we found out this week. But this is kind of where teams have to really start honing in. All right, who are our best guys? What's our best schemes here? They've got to get ready for the postseason because, you can't win a state title without being able to hold your own on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. So when you're taking a look at kind of recapping what happened in the top 10, there were a few surprises. Obviously, North Platte and what they did to East, how they did it. Yeah. We know that Lincoln East is kind of content, and we'll talk to Coach Gingery on Friday, is kind of content to trade scores, but that one got to be a little much for them, and Genatone was doing Genatone things.
Well, and crazy game. So just looking at it, North Platte led 41-31 at the end of the third quarter. Lincoln East went down and scored. They had a chance to go in and take the lead, and North Platte picked off Noah Walters at the 1 with midway through the fourth quarter, and they ran out the clock from there and converted a 4th and 1, I believe, during that stretch. Just absolutely did what they do. 69 carries for 441 yards, 5 touchdowns on the ground. Then passed for another score, 3 for 6 for 75. So that they spread it around. I don't know if this is accurate. Max Press has Genatone with negative rushing yards, but at Colton Tilford with 156 on the ground, and Brock Robley 240 yards.
He was the difference.
Man, that just a monster performance from him. And Genatone did what he did on defense a little bit, and Tilford
shorten the possessions, right? I mean, you don't want to give an offense like Lincoln East a ton of possessions, and Lincoln East got to get healthy, kind of outside the numbers, their receiving core, and get those guys back playing at an efficient level.
Yeah, Walter's still 412 yards and 5 scores, but those 2 interceptions, and I think he had only had 1 on the season coming in. I think it was like 28-1 or something like that, like crazy ratio. So that's huge, like for North Platte to go out there and pick him off not once but twice, and especially in a key moment like that. Yeah. That really tells you something about that North Platte team.
When you take a look at the back half of A that we say is kind of moving closer to the middle, mission accomplished this past week or not so much?
I mean, we weren't going to learn anything about Burke there against Omaha South. That was a 70-21 win. Although
we do like the direction they're trending, though.
Shouts to Donovan Moody, 4 touchdowns on 5 carries. Not bad, 112 yards.
We call that efficient.
Yeah.
Very efficient from Donovan Moody.
Yeah, just kind of get your work done early there so you can go have fun after that. But and then North Platte, Lincoln East, we saw kind of that game there. North Platte kind of edging ahead there. And then Columbus quietly hanging on there, 6-1. The 55-28 win over Omaha Northwest. Now it'll get much tougher this week.
Yeah, with Bellevue West.
Hosting Bellevue West. That game got a little frisky last year. Houseman showed some things, and but I mean that's a tough way to go here. But still, 6-1. They've had a great season so far, and they've been on a roll lately. So that's kind of looking at Sauter's poll. That's the bottom 4 there of the top 10. I think. I was at the Gretna Elkhorn South game.
Yeah.
That was probably the other really good game of the week. And man, Elkhorn South, just the toughness they show there. They show they belong in the top 5 at this point.
Yeah. See, I feel like I've said this for like the last 3 weeks, so maybe I'm just trying to speak it into existence. That's the one team that I would least like to play that doesn't get the attention of everyone else. You have to commit to playing a certain way against them, and they know who they are as a team, perhaps better than anyone in maybe the top 6 or 7.
Well, question for you. Elkhorn South and Creighton Prep, what do you kind of see as different? They're both kind of similar, somewhat limited passing attacks, but really good rushing attacks. Little tough on defense.
I think for Prep, the difference is their size up front, right? They're built to handle a team like Elkhorn South, and if it came down to throwing the football, Prep has evolved into a team that has become very efficient in the passing game. Elkhorn South isn't quite there yet. They probably have more answers up front for a guy like Maverick Noonan, and how they would shorten the possessions in those games. And if they needed to throw it, I actually think they could. They've come a long way in terms of the efficiency in their passing game. Now, they're not going to throw it around the yard, but they're more than capable.
Thomas Lighton is a dangerous receiver. Another 100-yard, 6 catches, 127 yards. Again, it was against Lincoln Northeast, 48-10 win for Creighton Prep this week. But they're 5-2. Elkhorn South is 6-1 right there, 5-4 respectively there. So both those teams are playing well right now.
They really are, and that would be fun to watch. That game would probably be played in about an hour and 40 minutes. Yeah. There'd be about 14 possessions between the teams, but for some reason, and I don't know if it's because I think Elkhorn South is so battle tested coming off their experience in the playoff run last year in the state finals against Westside or what, but when it comes to identity, I think theirs is the clearest. And it's portable. They run the ball. They stop the run. They have good special teams. It's not just an overstatement. I don't know. Neither one of those teams I would really enjoy playing. You better commit to playing a certain way with either one of them.
Yeah, and man, Elkhorn South, props to Maverick Noonan for stepping up when he did. I thought Gretna had a really good game plan to kind of take Noonan out of the game somewhat, to limit his impact at least, where they're running a lot of screens, a lot of quick game, getting the ball out before Noonan had a chance to get in the backfield. And I also thought Zane Flores showed some real mobility to keep plays alive. He did a good job of kind of dancing back there in the pocket, getting out to the edge to make some throws. But biggest play of the game, first, Noonan chases Flores down and tackles him at the line when he had some green grass ahead of him to pick up some yardage. And then on the next play, sack, fumble, Elkhorn South recovers. They're up 1 at that point. So you think, we're going to run the clock out here. Well, Cole Ballard had other plans. He broke about 3 or 4 tackles, dragged the safety about 5 yards at the second level, and then ran into the end zone for the touchdown. And you're thinking, well, you probably wanted him to go down at the goal line in that situation, but as a high school kid, you see the end zone in front of you. You got to go score that. But you kind of worry there about giving the ball back to Flores there with still some time on the clock. But props to the Elkhorn South defense for stiffening up again and kind of shutting that drive down.
Yeah, it was interesting to see kind of Gretna get away from their offensive game plan in the second half. And it's not just as easy as saying, hey, you know what, they took their foot off the gas. I know that's what some of their fan base thought. But Elkhorn South really did adjust in terms of how they wanted to play it.
Well, and they gashed them with those screen passes early on, and they shut them down in the second half. That was a great adjustment by Elkhorn South. Made a nice
adjustment. And sometimes, it's interesting. It's like, well, Gretna has been that team. You think they would just choose not to be that team in the second half? Like, Elkhorn South had a lot to do with it.
And Flores had 2 just beautiful throws on third downs on the same drive, including a touchdown on a great move by Joe Roll to kind of put the corner in the turf. But he didn't have a lot of time where he could stand back there and make those throws deep down the field because of the threat of Noonan coming off the edge.
So when you're taking a look at like things that you learned, was it learned or reinforced after last week? Was it things just reinforced?
Yeah, I think it's probably more that route. You kind of wondering there about Gretna versus Elkhorn South. I think Elkhorn South proved itself big time in that game. The way they finished that thing out, and Gretna is still very good. They belong. They're 6 again this week, and they belong in that top 6. I think. I think there aren't many teams that are going to be able to succeed against Gretna the same way that Elkhorn South did, because there aren't a lot of teams that have a Maverick Noonan that you have to worry about. So I think Gretna very much does belong in that mix, which is kind of what I thought going in, but that just reinforced it, even though they didn't get the win. The Lincoln East North Platte game was definitely interesting. You kind of felt like Lincoln East had been on a roll, but there are questions there about the viability of the running game and the defense there, especially with kind of one of their top guys out right now.
When you're looking at Class B and having your mind changed, man, hard not to be impressed with both Bennington and Plattsmouth. I almost want to be as impressed with Waverly for doing it week in, week out against top-notch opponents. But Plattsmouth had more critics than Waverly going into this one, and I think they answered the dinner bell. We could start with Elkhorn and Bennington.
Yeah, really impressive performance by Bennington.
It's a good football team.
Yes, it is. 49-14 was the final. Was 35-0 at halftime, and I don't think either one of us were totally shocked by that. And at this point, I think Bennington has proven itself to be the class of that class. And the way they're just running through good teams right now. Dylan Mostek, again, $192, 4 scores. Just ho-hum, just another day in the office. He's up. He's a quote approaching 1,700 yards rushing on the season, on almost 200 carries. So pretty special player right there. And Trey Bird, again, stepping up and doing what they needed to.
It's
11
just
for
it's
16.
whatever they need, right?
Yeah. And Caden Bloom's a really good receiver as well. He went over 100 yards receiving in this game. So he's got a really good number one target there. And obviously the threat of that running game opens a lot. And then he can beat you with his legs too on a third down if you don't account for him.
Hard to be tough on Elkhorn, right?
Yeah.
But that one looked like just simple physics. That's a really good team across the board in Bennington. I just don't think Elkhorn could match them in all the areas on a given football field.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I think Bennington, and they've got a couple guys on defense too. Austin Holtz had another really good game at linebacker. They've got a few guys that can make an impact on that side of the ball too. So it is a complete football team. And Elkhorn, as we know, lost a heck of a lot from last year, and they still got guys that are kind of new in roles here that are establishing themselves.
So when you look at what Plattsmouth was able to do versus Waverly, extremely battle-tested, just doing what Plattsmouth does. You talk about identity. You think you don't know that bunch doesn't know who they are?
Well, how about the way they won it, though? You talk about identity, obviously running the ball, and that's what they did again. Christian Manessa's 25 carries for 233 yards and a touchdown.
Rinse, repeat.
But it wasn't Manessa's for the game-winning play. They went to the air with their third quarterback, and he found game-winning touchdown there at the goal line. Heck of a throw and catch there, especially in that moment. I'm sure everybody's thinking, obviously they're worried about the run game, and you wouldn't expect to have to defend a game-winning pass like that, but that credit to Fitzpatrick for coming in and 3 for 3 for 31 yards and a game-winning touchdown.
You call that efficient?
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Kramer will be back soon, but they keep finding ways to win no matter who's taking snaps behind the center.
Which may ultimately matter as they get further down the season. They may need to add a different sort of passing dimension, but up until then, I think they'll cross that bridge when they come. A lot of people compare Mostek and Manessis, and their stats are eerily similar. Mostek, 192 for 1,674 yards, 8.7 a carry. That's 239 a game, but with 25 touchdowns. But Manessis, 176 for 1,608 yards, 9.2 a carry, 231 a game. Both with 7+ 100-yard games and 25 touchdowns for Manessis. I mean, a piece, 25 a piece for both those guys. They're very, very similar, almost in an airy kind of fashion.
You got some special players. And heck, you add in Rashad Madden, who's missed a couple games for Ralston, quietly kind of continuing to do his thing because Ralston hasn't been winning. But, I mean, lost the Scott this week. 30 carries for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did what he could. And he missed a couple games for the Rams. Good to see him back out there. But there's some special talent at running back, particularly in Class B this year.
So you want who do you think is my Columbus of Class B? The team that the record looks good. We're trying to get a little bit of a litmus test.
Seward.
Yeah.
And another good game, though.
It is, right? I mean, because we liked Beatrice.
Yeah.
And Seward gets it done 28-26. That's a good call. You know exactly who I was going to say.
Well, and Seward marched down and won the game at the end, scored with less than a minute to go. Gavin Suckup found Micah Hackbert for a 22-yard score to go ahead late for Seward. So props to them. Elliot Jorgens had a monster game for Beatrice, 15 carries for 143.
It's all in the name.
On the ground. Three catches for 63 yards and another score, plus he had a tackle for loss on defense. Like, just doing it all for them in that game. But again, 28-26 was the final on that one. Props to Seward for continuing to win now.
They run it to 6-1.
Yep,
6-1, and kind of like, hey, here we are. we're here. Not a chance to make a lot of statements late, but can kind of hold serve.
Yeah, and that's how you can. You can only play.
I think they have York
schedule
this week, right?
Yep.
Is that who they have?
They do. Yep.
And then, so is now the time, or do we wait another couple of weeks where we said, hey, remember when this team started 0-2 and we said, don't throw dirt on them yet. They're used to kind of some slow starts. They've had a tough schedule playing an A schedule early. Here comes Aurora.
Yep.
They just keep hanging around. That's a lot of people's preseason top 2-3.
And back up 5-2 now, back up to number 3 in NEB Preps poll. So, and
it's a good football team.
5 wins in a row, and
apparently North Platte is really good, right? One of their early season
no
losses.
shame about that.
So you just chalk it up.
43-14 win against Hastings this week, and they've got an interesting one coming up against Grand Island Northwest, and who 24-17 win over York. They did get Sam Hartman back, so that was good.
Changes the way that they can play a little bit, at least having some offensive options.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see kind of or handle that kind of dual quarterback guy that does it all for them. So chance again for Aurora just to put another good result on their schedule as they march towards the postseason here. But yeah, they're looking pretty strong here.
Going to get a good seed too because they played that tough early schedule. Where are the show me's this week for you? Is it really just Columbus and Bellevue West, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's in terms of teams trying to move up. There aren't a lot that have a chance to really kind of make a statement from kind of the lower half of the top 10. I guess that Grand Island Northwest, like we just talked about with Aurora, if they could get that, obviously Beatrice is hosting Plattsmouth. If they could pull something off there, that could turn around after back-to-back losses.
I wonder about Beatrice being able to score. Yeah. I mean, you're going to need probably 20 minimum. I just don't know if I could see Beatrice scoring that offensively, short of maybe Plattsmouth turning the ball over.
Yeah, because it was impressive what Plattsmouth did defensively against Waverly. Totally shut down that running game for the most part. Cole Murray kind of bottled up.
Tough kid, though.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
He's
tough. He took some shots in that one, and he just keeps coming. You can tell winners used to win. Winners win, right? He's just going to keep staying the course.
But, man, Waverly is a tough 4-3 right there.
I mean, look at those losses.
Yeah. Again, Class B. This is what happens when you have a class that shrinks as much as B has over the last few years. There's a limited number of teams that are in the mix, and they're playing each other a lot.
It's like you look at, and listen, it's not like we're flying the Waverly banner, but they lost to Scott, they lost to Elkhorn, and they've lost to Plattsmouth. And that was a healthy Scott team. That was week 2 when Scott was kind of clicking along, and we thought that Scott was pretty good, and it was in double overtime. Right? I mean, that took a little bit of time. So for you, where are you heading on Friday?
I think I'll probably do the North Platte. I need to see Genetone play in person. Haven't got a chance to see them. So a couple of the other ones that could be interesting, but I think I've seen at least one of the teams. So I think that's probably where I'm going to head.
Well, I don't know where I'll be. Should I stay at home and enjoy the night off or make a run?
Yeah, you got Southeast at Gretna is kind of intriguing. It's a big one for both of those teams.
I think Gretna needs that from a confidence standpoint heading into a potential good playoff seeding. That would go a long way. And Southeast needs it for a little bit of litmus. I'm looking at the quality wins on Southeast roster. Gretna would be one that I think that they can go get. And
then they close out against Elkhorn South too, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's a tough way to finish the season
and
with Gretna.
And two total opposite teams to prepare for.
Yeah. So that'll be tough for them. So it's probably a good this week, 35-0 against Bellevue East. Just kind of get yourself ready for the stretch run for the Knights there. But and probably we should mention it's real shame that Brian Benson game, kind of what happened at the end there, considering Brian game-winning field goal, I think it was.
Yeah, 24-21 as time expired.
Snapped a 23-game losing streak. The Bears did. So that should have been cause for celebration and a great story. And unfortunately, just with what happened after the game, that's not the case.
Yeah, district made the decision. Neither team, Benson nor Bryan, will be playing this week. So Westside, and I believe it was Millard North for Benson, will now have the night off. Yeah. Was it Millard North that Benson had?
That could be. I didn't mark that one down.
I try to commit it to memory, and I almost thought for sure it is Millard somebody. Let me take a look see here, just so we can close out on an accuracy note. It would have been Millard North. So Millard North now will go to 2-6. Outside chance maybe makes next week must win for them. To get to 3 wins in the district, because currently they are 4th, and they've got, coming off that loss to Grand Island, and they'll close with. I'm just taking a look at Millard North's schedule here, which is interesting. Time of the forfeit, they will close at Norfolk.
Oh, so yeah,
district seating points will matter. Fantastic show as we get ready to roll the music. We'll see what happens next week as we inch closer to state playoffs, district seedings. We'll learn a lot, man. Fantastic show. That's Jacob Padilla. I am Damon Benning. We'll be back next week with Nebraska Preps Postgame.
Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
A Hurrdat Media Production.